Hi everyone, so today we're going to be doing a full maintenance inspection on this 3-bedroom terrace property. We're going to do everything from top to bottom, looking in the loft at the insulation, condition of the roof, going to be going into the bathrooms, checking the ventilation and the paintwork in there, as well as diving behind the walls by doing some electrical testing on the cables. Let's have a look. Hi, my name is Justin Goldie, one of the directors here at Goldson Homes. We're a property company based in the south of the UK. If you're unfamiliar with our company, we run a maintenance company which specialises in doing routine maintenance and upkeep of properties in the south of the UK. We're based in Guildford. So basically what we're going to be doing today is a package that we offer to most of our clients, which is a full maintenance inspection. So this is sort of, if you just bought a property and you're looking to get it tenanted straight away, just to get a report on basically what the property's actual condition is like. This property is actually tenanted already, so we will keep that in mind. And just so you know, we complete all of our works in-house. Well, the majority of it, we do sub out some of the plumbing work, but everything else is done in-house, which makes sure that we keep to the promise of ensuring our work is to the best quality. So first of all, we're going to be jumping up into the loft. Alright guys, so we're up in the loft. So what we're going to be looking at is first of all the insulation up here. So as you can see, this is, I mean, it's literally got one sheet. Very, very thin insulation, which means it's not very good. I think building regulations says that nowadays in new builds, you have to have at least 275 mil. Right now, we're sitting at about 10 mil. So nowhere near it. 275 is about up there. And that's how much insulation you want to have. So this is not adequate insulation. So it is something we'll be putting on our report to let the landlord know. We'll obviously measure up so we can quote for that to do the work ourselves. Next, what we're going to be looking at is the roof lining. So what you want to check is that there's no holes. As you can see here, there is a few holes, but it looks relatively intact everywhere else. In terms of that being there, you know, unless he wants to redo the entire roof, it should be fine now. There's no real signs of any leaks coming through, and it seems to just stretch in this sort of area. Obviously it can start impacting your joists, especially during winter time, but yeah, so that is something we also recommend. Get loads of pictures of that. And finally, for the loft, is checking the joist work. So what we do want to check is that all of these joists, none of them are rotting away, so obviously we'll check all of them in this whole entire loft space. Another thing to also take account of, back to the insulation, so if you can see down there, you want to make sure that the house, well, the roof is actually breathing. So that goes out to your fascia, in which you'll have some vents in there, which will allow the roof to actually breathe. If you block those up, you know, you shouldn't be doing that. It will get very stale air, and that can lead to, you know, some issues. And another thing to pay attention to with regards to the insulation is making sure that's actually installed correctly. So what we have seen before is that, as you can see, the joists are currently running like this. You want to make sure that your insulation is fitted between the joists. So obviously if these joists are only about 100 mil thick, that first bit of insulation is running in between the joists and not jumping over it like this, because essentially what that will do is create a pocket of air right down to the end of the joist, as we've just explained with that fascia. That cold air will end up coming up from where the fascia is and through along the joist all across the roof. Well, the ceiling downstairs will then get cold, especially if it's in a bathroom. That very warm air from the bathroom when someone's taking a shower, and that cold air that's running along the joist, that will cause cold spotting, and you will start to see mold. So if this is something you've obviously seen in your house, go have a look at your insulation in the loft and make sure it's actually installed correctly. Alright, so that is done for the loft now. Obviously we will be doing a full report on what we found up there. Next thing to check is the ventilation. So if we come into this bathroom where you typically expect most of your ventilation to happen, there's actually no extractor fan in here. Now, as you can see on the ceiling, the paint is actually starting to flake off, which is most likely due to moist air sitting in this bathroom, causing that paint to peel off. So what we're going to recommend to the landlord is to install an extractor fan in here, and then also just scrape down all that old paint, give it a good sand, and redecorate the ceiling in here. So obviously, if there was an extractor fan in here, what we would do is use our anemometer to actually check the extraction rate and make sure that that is in line with the building regulations. Right, so next what we're going to be checking is the heating system. So basically what we want to check is that when it is coming up, when you turn the thermostat up and it reaches temperature, that the boiler is actually calling for heat and that all the radiators are actually heating up. So how we will do this is basically just turn this radiator up. So if you hear that, you can hear a click, which means now it's calling for heat. So then we're going to go through and have a look at the boiler and see and make sure that that's calling for heat, and then obviously go and check that each radiator is coming on. So this is actually particularly important to check your heating system. We would recommend doing it once every year, because during summer your heating system is completely turned off, and then comes winter you want to turn it back on, and some of the valves or the TRVs have seized up, meaning that the heating system won't work on that first night when it's really cold. Right, so now we're at the boiler. Obviously we've turned the thermostat on, so it's now calling for heat, and we can see that that is the case by this little symbol that is flashing here. So it shows a little radiator and that keeps flashing, which obviously means that the boiler is now turned on and it is pumping water around the heating system. So now what we're going to do is go and check every single radiator, make sure they're all actually heating up. Okay, so we've confirmed that the thermostat is actually calling for heat, so the thermostat's all good. We've checked that the boiler is firing and actually calling for heat for the heating system. So now we are actually checking all the radiators. So what we want to check is that they're all getting hot, and you want to make sure that this is happening throughout the radiator, because what tends to happen sometimes is you get sediment build up in the radiator, so that can cause a blockage, and sometimes it can only heat on either the top or the bottom, in which case you will then want to take the radiator off, completely flush it out, because over time it obviously gets a bit rusty, or if the inhibitor, if there wasn't any inhibitor installed. The next thing also, this property doesn't have any, but you want to check the TRV valves, because these can sometimes go wrong. So say the radiator wasn't warming up and you have a TRV valve on this side or that side, what could sometimes happen is that they seize up. So what you'd want to do is actually take it off. This is obviously just an on-off valve, and you'd be able to push the valve down. So if it does get seized up, maybe if it just hasn't been used, you can try just pushing that up and down to see if that then releases it to let the water in. But obviously once you take that TRV valve off, it will then allow water to come through, so you should feel the radiator start to heat up. If the TRV valve has gone bad, you can sometimes just replace the head. So it'll literally just be unscrewing it, getting a new one, putting a new one on. Easy as that to get the heating system working again. Right, so next what we're going to do is check the immersion heater. So obviously if your heating system does end up failing, if the boiler goes into a fault mode, at least you can still have hot water, and this is done by turning the immersion on. So in this property it's located, the hot water tank is located over here. So what we're going to do, obviously immersion is there, obviously we've isolated it, and so now we're going to test the immersion heater. So this is just a simple continuity test. We bang that on there. As you can see, we're getting 19.4 ohms. So what we can expect is, because this is a 3000 kilowatt immersion heater, we can expect it to be between 17 and 20. Obviously we've got 19.4, so the immersion heater is all good. Right, and the last thing to check for the heating system would be to actually do a full system flush. Now the landlord has said to us that he had it done last year, so he says we don't have to do that for him, so that's not going to happen. Well, we won't do that today, but obviously what you do is essentially drain the entire heating system, so all the water out of the radiators. We'll then flush it with a inhibitor. So this is a cleaning inhibitor, which is the Sentinel X800. That will flush the entire system. We'll leave it in there for a bit just to work all of that sediment up and get rid of it. Finally, we'll then flush that out and refill the system with another inhibitor, which will be the Sentinel X100, which will then stay in there just to protect the heating system. So obviously we won't be doing that, but typically on our full maintenance package, that is what we would do. Okay, so we've checked the heating system now. What we want to now do is check the guttering. So obviously we've got guttering all around the house. What we're going to do is inspect the guttering, make sure it's all intact, and then also give it all a good clean. So as you can see in here now, there's loads of debris, lots of dirt in there, which will end up clogging up your gutters. So essentially what happens is, as you can see, this is sort of like a felt roof, which will end up peeling off. It's made of little, I guess it's little stones, I think. And that sometimes obviously comes off the roof and into the gutter and ends up filling it up, and you end up with loads of muck in there, which at the end of the day will actually end up clogging up the gutters. So what we're going to do is clean out the entire gutter, and then we're going to test it by obviously washing some water down there, making sure that the guttering is all working properly, so right down the waste pipe, and then also having a look at all the joins towards the ends as well, to make sure that no water is leaking out, because obviously if you do have water that is leaking out of your gutters, say in this joint here, which was coming down, or maybe if it was over this wall, that water is then going to drip down, run down the wall, which can cause foundational issues as well as damp issues on the entire internal part of the property. So let's get on with that. Right, so what we're doing is just brushing this one. Obviously the debris that's in there is not too bad. It's obviously been in good upkeep up until now. Obviously this one is quite low, we can access it with a ladder. The higher ones we'll need to get the hoover out, which is basically just a big hoover that we have a long extension pole on with a little hook at the end, and basically just cleans out the entire gutters. But obviously doing it with a brush and sweeping it out is much better. You get almost everything, all the stuff that actually just sticks in there that won't get a hoover, to make sure that it's all actually out of there. So yeah, now we're going to test the gutter. Right, so to test it, all we're just going to do is put loads and loads of water in here, just to simulate obviously a rainfall coming down, and just watch where that water goes. So obviously what we want to check is that everything's actually flowing down, it's not pooling anywhere, which may be the case in here. So if we look there, what we can see is that the water's actually starting to pool up a bit in this area here, which tends to mean that the guttering is dipping down a bit. As you can see, this is a metal gutter, hence why there's quite a bit of rust in here. It's probably because the water's just sitting and not actually flowing away. So that might be something we're going to put in our report, maybe to just prop that gutter up a bit to ensure the water actually flows towards the downpipe. But other than that, everything looks good. Can't see any leaks, so that's good for this. So the next thing that we would be doing is an EICR. So for those of you who don't know, that is an electrical installation condition report. And essentially what we will do is just check all the cables in the property, make sure they're all safe and everything can be earthed. A lot of the time in these older properties, you do have an issue with the earthing, especially in the lighting circuits. So it's just to confirm that the property is safe. Now, obviously the landlord on this has his EICR only runs out at the end of this year, so the end of 2025. So he'd like us to come back and do that. And obviously because he's bought the full package, we will come do that for him later on in the year. This is obviously just because it lasts for 5 years. So if we do it now, then it's only going to last 5 years, whereas he'll get an extra year by leaving it to the end of 2025. So that's what we're going to do for him. Because it's still in date. But obviously what we would do is do a full EICR on the property. We've got our multi-function test over here. It's the Q-Tech one, really good piece of kit. And basically we'll do the full EICR and give him a report based off of that. So next we'll have the fire safety risk assessment. And because this package is aimed at landlords who've just purchased a property, they might not have done the fire risk assessment before. So what we'll do is do that for you. Essentially what you want to check is that there is a smoke alarm on each floor. So just like this, where we've got the smoke alarms, just check that they're all in date. They typically last for around 10 years. Next, what you want to do is check that there's carbon monoxide alarms by any combustible equipment, such as a fireplace or by the boiler, you need to have an in-date carbon monoxide alarm. The other thing to check on the risk assessment is that all escape routes are accessible and easy to go through, so there's nothing actually blocking it, no furniture in the way of it. So as you can see up here, they do have some laundry baskets, but it's not in the immediate way of anyone trying to escape. Similarly downstairs, where you've got the main entrance hall, that is all kept clear, there's nothing in the way there. So obviously we'll include that in our fire safety risk assessment. The other thing you need to check is that the electrical installation condition report is up to date and that the gas safe has been done. That's another major thing. And new regulations also permit that any furniture within the property that has come with the property, so the landlord has furnished the property, needs to be up to the fire regulations. So you can typically see that by a little label on the back of any of the furniture that just tells you about the fire information and if it meets the current British standards for furniture and the fire regulations. Alright guys, so we're back in the office now. So obviously we've just completed the full preventive maintenance package on that 3-bedroom property. Two other things that we will be doing on that is doing the gas safety report and then also a full boiler service. So obviously we are not gas safe, so we're getting a gas safe engineer out to come do that. So essentially with the gas safe certificate, what we'll be doing is checking any appliances that use gas. So that will be the boiler and the fireplace in that property. And you'll also be checking all of the installation pipework as well, just to make sure that the property is safe to be using gas. So obviously that you have to do every single year. And then he'll also be doing a full boiler service on the boiler, just to make sure that the lifespan of that boiler is extended by doing a service on it every year. So that takes us to the end of the video. We've obviously gone through quite a bit. We had a look in the loft, we did a little ventilation survey, we did some gutter cleaning and a gutter inspection, the heating system check, the ERCR, which we'll be doing later on this year, and then obviously the fire safety risk assessment, followed up by the plumber going in there and doing the gas work. So yeah, really been through a lot in this video. I hope it's been helpful. Obviously if you are based in the southeast, anywhere in the southeast, we can do this package for you. That is our full package. If you'd like more information on our pricing for that, click the link in the description below. We also have a yearly package that we do. So this is obviously all preventative maintenance, just to see if there's any issues that we can try to prevent before they become a bigger problem later down the line. So yeah, that's it for this video. Please don't forget to subscribe and like below. And as always, we'll see you later.